Hello everyone, welcome back to another SwansCast pre-match preview video ahead of Swansea's trip up to Blackburn. And I've got Dan from Rovers Chat here to join me today to discuss all things Blackburn Rovers. So thanks for joining me, Dan, and welcome.
No, thanks for having us on, Luke. Looking forward to looking ahead to Saturday's game.
Nah, no problem. And I know I've caught up with you in the past, so it's good to be chatting again. I guess maybe not so good in the fact it means we're in the same league again, but I'm sure we all have aspirations of heading out through the summit rather than through the trapdoor. Not looking amazing for us so far, but going into this match, you've picked up a little bit again. I think you had a bit of a drop off after a good early season form. Maybe you've had a bit of a blip, but coming back into a spell of good form, which I was quite saddened to see actually, because I thought maybe we'd have a little bit of a better time coming up than we might have now based on the last few games. So let's get into it anyway. So first of all, if you'd like to introduce yourself properly with maybe where we can find your content as well.
Yeah, so I'm Dan. I lead the content over at Rovers Chat, which is just like SwansCast. It's Swansea, Blackburn Rovers based YouTube channel. We've got a podcast, social media presence as well. So you can find us on Twitter or on X at Rovers Chat _ or on YouTube at Rovers Chat. If you search for Rovers Chat on any platform, you'll probably find us.
Indeed. So go check that out, and I'm sure there'll be some pre-match and post-match content if you want to check that out ahead. And after kick-off on Saturday, obviously 3 p.m, we're going up to Blackburn, so away game for Swansea. Starting off then, I like to look back at the summer, just because obviously we haven't caught up since last season. We haven't played Blackburn since last season. So summer of change, or if anything, has there been anything different about Blackburn other than players over the summer? Has anything changed, or maybe it's all the same?
Yeah, quite a bit. I know you mentioned obviously avoiding the players, but the loss of a few players like Brereton Diaz, who's gone over to Spain, etc., has meant Rovers have had to kind of change the way of playing. We're more reliant on a lot of players now rather than maybe the key men. So I think we've had 16 different scorers this year already, which kind of sums up Rovers attacking. I'd say attacking issues, but we've actually been okay. But we've gone to more of a style that sees us create a lot of chances. We don't score many. I know some people don't like the XG stats, but I think we're third in the league in terms of that. So it's been a case of very high risk, high reward football. What we've gone for, we've lost some games 3 or 4-0. We lost 3-0 at Plymouth when I'd argue we were the better side, which sounds a bit silly, but that's kind of what you'll see from Rovers now. We go to try and, rather than going for 1-0, we're more 4-3 wins, we're more 4-2s. And don't get me wrong, it's good to watch when it's working well, but when you're not scoring chances and conceding 3 at the other end, it's a pain. So definitely a different Rovers side that you'll see from last year. It's had mixed results, like you mentioned. We've had that blip in recent weeks, and now we're on the back of 3 wins in a row, which is so Rovers like that you can never estimate how the next game's actually going to go.
Hopefully that means that it will reverse again going into this one. But sounds like it could be quite an interesting game for the neutral, potentially. Obviously, both sides are hoping they come out on top. You mentioned a couple of player changes there with your main man, Diaz, leaving. So what other player changes, ins and outs, and notable ones have been made in the summer?
Yeah, so we also saw Bradley Dack leave, who everyone will know was kind of Rovers' talisman since we got back into the Championship. He left, but he kind of left at the right time. Injuries were meaning he were only playing 20 games a season, and for the wage he was on, which was one of our highest earners, it just wasn't financially right to keep him here. Daniel Ayala, very experienced centre-back, left the club after 3 years here. He were again a player that, if you could have him for 40 games a season, I think we'd have made the playoffs in one of these years. But then getting him for 40 is a task that I think you're asking too much from any manager, really. So we lost a lot of experience. I think that was the main thing for Rovers that we lost. Although maybe not age-wise for Brereton Diaz, he was a very experienced Championship forward. You got Bradley Dack, who was probably our oldest player after Daniel Ayala also left. So the summer saw Rovers looking for experience, but we didn't really bring it in. We also lost our goalkeeper as well, first choice goalkeeper Thomas Kaminski. So we went into this window after these changes looking for experience and looking for some key positions. We didn't get the experience. the oldest player we signed was 27, I think. He came in from the Dutch league, so he was experienced, but it feels at times we don't have that extra know-how that maybe some teams have. Don't get me wrong, it works at other times when your young players are more free, they're learning on the job almost. So we come into him and we brought in a lot of players that are coming to prove a point. We brought in Andrew Moran on loan from Brighton. We all know how good Brighton are in bringing the young lads through. But again, he was a risk because he was so inexperienced. We brought in Leo Volstead, a goalkeeper from the Swedish leagues, who again, he's coming over to England for his first real bit of football. Again, it's inexperience. Niall Ennis came from Plymouth on a free, not really played at championship level. So every signing was either a young lad coming in or someone coming from abroad. We haven't signed a standard championship player that you kind of look at and think, he's definitely ready for the championship. So it's been a very interesting window. I'm glad we haven't gone for the stalwarts of the championship that move around every other club, but we then lack in certain parts. Seeing games out, although we've done it well this year, I feel it might cost us at one point. So it's been an interesting summer. It's been a lot of change as well, and I think we've reacted quite well so far.
Yeah, I would say as well that I think from what I've seen from the outside, it's obviously going quite well. It's quite a packed midfield in the championship table at the moment. I know, we've just come off the back of a loss to Watford, and before that Leicester. To me, I disregard any result against Leicester in the league because there's literally no point reading into it. They're a cut above everyone. I think everyone can admit that. Exclude it from any of your form tables, I think. It's just whatever. If you get something from it, it's a bonus. But before that, we had a 4-match winning run. We've gone on to lose a home match against Watford that we probably should have done a bit better in. And it's just crazy to see how the discourse changes. I'm not sure if it's the same for yourselves when you went on that 3-match blip. Was the narrative in the fans a bit negative during that time, or could people see the bigger picture?
It was a mix. I think it felt like in that blip that we had, it felt that you knew there was something building. When I mentioned this XG, there were a game against, I think it was Sunderland we played midweek, and the first 25 minutes were possibly the best I've seen a Rovers side play for a number of years. We were knocking the ball around. We absolutely tore Sunderland apart. We didn't score and we lost 3-1. So I think with Rovers, you see us in this situation that we knew what was coming. We knew we were going to get a win, and we knew we were going to batter someone, which was QPR in the end, but I think a lot of teams will batter them. But we kind of just knew that you had to stick with it, ride with it, a young team again, so they're learning as they go along. But you couldn't get away from that frustration that kept coming of, oh, we've done it again. We've done it again. Even Leicester at home when, like you mentioned, they are cut above everyone. They beat us 4-1 in the end, but we got back to 1-1. It went 2-1 and we kind of sat there thinking, go on, Rovers, nick a draw, and then we missed a chance and they went and scored 2 at the other end. So
sounds very similar, to be honest, have you?
Yeah, it seems to be the narrative as well with Sunderland yesterday, when we're recording this, but it's just so many, like you say, you kind of disregard that. So we lost another 3 and then you're sitting there thinking, it's going to click, but how long do you wait for it to click? Because you feel if you sat there in 5 games' time then saying, come on, it'll click. How long do you have to give it? So we know that there's going to be ups and downs. Saturday could easily be a down in our season. I don't think it'd be a major shock if we did, purely because of Rovers. But yeah, it was just patience. But it's hard to do that when you sat there watching it for 90 minutes and the outcome's inevitable. It's frustrating.
I think patience is important, though. And we're going to say this from both teams' perspectives in terms of the fans that might be not very patient, questioning bad results and thinking you should always do better. If you look at the championship table right now, Leeds are in 3rd place with 23 points. Plymouth are in 21st place with 13 points. That's a 10-point difference between 3rd place and 21st. And to couple that up with another point, 21st to 22nd, so out of relegation to relegation, is 5 points. So I think the midfield in the championship all season is going to be so tight. Any sort of small run is going to shift you right up the table. But it just highlights how, for me, a lot of these teams are very similar in level of quality as a collective. and momentum and form is going to play such a big factor into where the league table finishes by the end. You've got the top two at the moment that are cut above. Maybe Leeds and Southampton are starting to edge their way up, and I think everyone else after that, bar the three that potentially seem to be getting a little bit caught adrift at the bottom, are definitely not too much in it, I think, personally. And anyone could beat anyone. I don't think you're going to see that many teams smashing it week in, week out. So get used to having a bit of a rocky road, I think, for a lot of teams in the league this season. No one's entitled to victories. You've got to work hard and earn it. And it's a tiring league to be part of, I think. And squad depth is probably an issue for many teams. Yeah, I just think that's a bit of an important insight, because it sounds like maybe you have some similar themes when you go on a bad run to what we have. I think sometimes it's a bit of an overreaction and no one doesn't see the bigger picture on occasions. And obviously a lot of people do as well, but definitely important. Okay, going into maybe a little bit more about this specific game. You kind of already answered this question a little bit at the start, about your style of play and what we've seen this season, and I know we discussed that a bit, but do you think anything specific will change going into this match against Swansea with your style?
Not really. We like to kind of stick with the principles. We played out the back, which I'm sure Swansea fans know. There's a very up and down of that, and there's times at Millwall we nearly got caught, and I think we all know it's going to happen. We like to stick with the principles. I think this team, because it keeps being labelled as a project by the manager and people around the club, which it is, because we're still kind of weaning off the side bits that Tony Mowbray left for the club. We're kind of building to this new style still that we're just going to stick with it. And sometimes that's not going to pay off, but sometimes it will, and hopefully, we'll see this project really coming to life, and we are kind of now. So no, we'll stick with the same. I can't imagine we'll do anything else. We'll just try and beat you with that maybe moment of quality we can hopefully find.
Yeah, I'd imagine it'd be exactly the same for us. Bit different to what you would have come up against last year under Russell Martin. Maybe you'll see a bit more of a high press, a little bit more intensity, depending if they recover from midweek. They're quite poor against Watford in regards to that sort of stuff. But I'd imagine that's what you'll see. So if you're saying you're playing up from the back and expecting to get caught out, I'd imagine we're looking at that as a weakness to try and get the high press working well. That's where we've had a bit of success when we have won the games that we've won this season. So especially against Norwich, we nearly caught Leicester out with one as well. So it is an area we've improved massively, and Duff has brought in to be successful here. Still try and pass it around, not to the extent of Russell Martin, but that is still the backbone of what we do in, especially when we have the ball. Against Watford last night, unfortunately, when they sat up to defend, it doesn't work so well. We struggle, and that's a similar theme to what we've had continuously playing that sort of style, but need to do better to break that down. But if you guys are going to kind of do similar sort of game plan, could be quite an exciting lot of space, both teams trying to exploit. Maybe if you lose the ball in the wrong area, a bit of a transition and counter-attack opportunity. I think that's what we'll be trying to aim for, and hopefully we can limit that for yourselves as well. So have you got a predicted formation and maybe some key players you think might be included that we should watch out for?
Yeah, so we're almost guaranteed to use the 4-2-3-1 that kind of becomes a 4-3-3 as such. I imagine it's going to be the first time you're told this, but all of our players to watch at the moment are right backs. We've got James Hill, who's actually playing right back on loan from Swansea. He's been brilliant since he come in. Results have taken a real upwards trajectory since he come into the club. He's just a really solid option. He's a bit of height that we don't have anywhere else, really, and a bit of a physical player. Then in centre mid, we've got another right back called Joe Rankin Costello. He scored 2 goals in his last 2, and he's really picked up that midfield role and ran with it. He's constantly pressing, constantly getting us forward. And then our other one's Callum Britton, who's also a right back that's been playing on the right wing, and he scored his first goal in about 4.5 years the other night, where he cut inside and whipped it in the top corner. And this is where Rovers are at. It's strange saying there's 3 right backs in the team, but the 3 players that are so versatile that Rovers can afford to have them in, they offer us defensive solidity. We attack a lot down the right, or we have in the last couple of games, because these 3 have just got this chemistry that we've not seen anywhere else on the pitch, and it's helping everywhere. The other night, one right back scored and assisted, one scored and the other one assisted, which is really strange to see after Rovers have struggled for a proper right back for as long as I can remember watching us. But them three have definitely done it. Sammy Smodick's an attacking mids, definitely one to watch. I think he's still the joint second top scorer in the league. That might have changed with the midweek fixtures, but he's been really influential. He's a pressing player. You know, if you want to have that ball at the back, he'll be the one who'll put that pressure on. He doesn't tire from running. There's a lot of talent in his side. Like I mentioned at the start, with the 16 goal scorers this season, it's because we're having to share the responsibility around. There's no star man anymore in this team, I wouldn't say. I'd say there's a lot more players that are working for the team rather than working for their individual records. It's something I haven't seen in a long time at Rovers. We're always used to having a 15, 20 goal a season striker, whether that were Brereton Diaz, Danny Graham, Adam Armstrong. Now it's someone else who's going to influence the game each time. So definitely a positive to have, but sadly could go anywhere with these players. It wouldn't shock me if we turn up and have a stinker, and it wouldn't shock me if we turn up and play off the park.
Yeah, interesting. Just to clarify, James Hill, you said is on loan from, was it Bournemouth? I think you said Swansea by accident, but want to check. It was Bournemouth, isn't it? Just to, before anyone in the comments gets it in there, just wanted to put that out. But easy to do. Yeah, I didn't realise it was you had a guy on loan from there. They're struggling as well. I wonder if they'd be eyeing that up as a recall in January.
Let's not mention it. Let's not think about January.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so what about if I flip the question? Have you got any Swansea players that worry you going into this one?
Now, Swansea's a team I can't admit I've watched too much of this year.
I'd be exactly the same if you asked me the question. But
I know, like Matt Grimes, obviously former Rovers in at Swansea. There's not too many. Obviously, the ones I associate with Swansea over the last year or so have all, unfortunately for you, left.
Yeah.
Liam Cullen's one that kept getting linked with Rovers and probably will do all of January and all of.
Any idea where that's coming from? Or?
Not a clue. We just seem to be linked with him. We're after a striker and his name come up, so no.
He's not like a 20 goal a year, though. I don't know if that's what you're after, but he's definitely not that.
It seems to be the common thing for us, so maybe that's why he was linked.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's pretty much everything I've got for this, but I would like to end on a little bit of a non-football related funny or fun question. And that is, when you go to a stadium, what would be your pint or drink of choice if you could choose anything?
Oh, drink. I'm a cider drinker. I don't do beer, so what should we go for? A Kingston Press. I like a Kingston Press, especially when we go to Hull. That's
fair. That's good. I'm a cider drinker too over beer, so I like a Thatcher's though. I'm sure I've probably said it many times on here, but like Thatcher's is a good shout for me. So there we go. Thank you very much, Dan, for joining me. And if you'd like to remind everyone where they can find your content, please.
Yeah, you can find us on X at Rovers Chat _ or on YouTube. Just search for Rovers Chat on there or any podcast provider.
Brilliant. I always find it weird hearing Twitter called X.
I still call it Twitter.
So I don't think I've ever... When I plugged out Twitter, I still haven't done X yet. And then I'm like, I should say X, but can't get out of the habit. But yeah, thank you very much for coming on. And good luck after Saturday for the rest of the season.
No, thank you very much. You too as well.
Thank you very much.